The last patch of the year is here, so let's go over all the changes in patch 13.24 and how they affect the meta just in time for you to grind through the holidays. The champions being buffed are Azir, Braum, Galio, Gragas, Cassante, Leona, Lucian, Mordekaiser, Kiana, Talon and Zeri. Briar and Ivern get some nerfs, Vel'Koz get some bug fixes, and the new mage Hui is here with a gazillion ability combos to wrap your head around. Don't forget, if you want to see Hui's abilities, combos, builds and more, then head to our website and see it all for yourself by clicking the first link in the description. So let's start off with the top lane as always, and in the S tier we have Akshan, Camille, Fiora, Alawi, Jax, Olaf, Ornn, Poppy and Riven. Not really too much change in the top lane meta this patch. Gragas has got some buffs to his passive though, and when this guy is good in the top lane, he is a great option to play with phase rush, jumping in and out of fights, sustaining off damage and scaling into team fights. He's always been a really good pick to counter those oppressive split pushing bruisers that want to get ahead and start stomping and diving laners. And now that Gragas has got some buffs to his passive, we've moved him up from C to B, and we definitely recommend giving him another go. Speaking of oppressive bruisers, Fiora is having the time of her life at the moment. She's got an incredibly impressive win rate across almost every single rank, and it's not really too hard to understand why. Fiora has great mobility, fantastic snowball potential, she tears through all types of targets with the true damage on her vitals, she's got tons of sustain, she's got one of the best abilities in the game in her W, so when she is viable, she's always a little bit too strong. Fiora is actually a lot more simple to play than people realise as well. She can look pretty fancy and she has got some interesting combos to learn. But learning her is mostly just learning her limits and learning her matchups, because once you get the hang of those vitals, you will be split pushing and winning and carrying and backdooring pretty damn often. If you don't want to be a split pusher though, you can't really go wrong with playing a big bad tank, and Ornn is one of the best in that role at the moment. Ornn just offers so much in his kit. He's got gank setup, he's got CC, he's got an amazing engaging team fighting ultimate, and as long as you don't get too far behind and get a bit too squishy, you will always be useful in any game, in any team comp, in any draft. Ornn is definitely not quite as easy as some other tanks like Malphite or Maokai. He does take a bit more practice to really play well on, but when you do get the hang of it, you will definitely see the rewards. Into the jungle next, and in the S tier we have Briar, Fiddlesticks, Graves, Ivern, Kha'Zix, Master Yi, Nocturne and Rammus. Even more nerfs to Briar and some to Ivern too. However, we are going to keep these two in the S tier for now and really see just how much difference these nerfs make. Rammus has been rolling his way through the ranks into those top tiers again, and now has an incredibly impressive success rate across almost every single rank. We all know what Rammus does best. He spins around the map, locks enemies down and taunts them so they can't play the game. And if you manage to pick Rammus into a full AD enemy composition, you just can't lose. So if you haven't already been playing Rammus, now's the time to pick him back up again. Brand in the jungle is definitely here to stay, and actually he is far stronger than you might think. He has a really fast clear time, he can tear through objectives super easily with that passive. His ganks are actually pretty damn strong too, especially if you can hit the Q stun, and nobody can argue with Brand's AoE damage and scaling. Over the years we've seen plenty of random and different AP picks in the jungle and in other roles as well, but this one seems like it's going to be one to stay. So if you haven't already played Brand in the jungle, you just might be surprised at how good it actually is. Trundle is one of the most underrated junglers in the game right now, and despite his incredibly low popularity, if you look at his win rate across the ranks, it's actually ridiculously impressive. Now he's not the most blind pickable jungler in the game, he does have some pretty bad matchups, but if you get him in the right matchup, it's going to be one of the freest wins of your life. Trundle has some seriously surprising early game damage and skirmishing power. He's an absolute monster of a duelist in the river, and if he gets ahead here, he will snowball incredibly hard. But the fact is, even if you don't snowball, your ultimate is useful enough to pick Trundle on its own, because you will absolutely destroy enemy tanks with just one click. So if you are looking for a new jungler to play that isn't really too contested, consider giving Trundle a go. Into the mid lane next, and in the S tier it's Akshan, Neeko, Orianna, Swain, Sylas, Syndra, Talon, Twisted Fate and Xerath. The meta really has stabilised here, with control and utilities scaling mages really taking the spotlight, but there's still plenty of choice for you to get stuck into. Twisted Fate has made his way back into the S tier for the first time in a very long time now, and he really is a fantastic pick to carry solo queue with. He can control lanes and waves with all the wave clear he's got with those cards and red cards. He's got point and click CC to set up ganks and control fights. And then you've also got his ultimate, which allows him to teleport around the map and carry all lanes at the same time. Now you do have to be a little bit careful of those highly mobile assassins that can get on top of you, or those long range mages that can poke you from afar. but then you've got that sweet spot in the middle where TF just does it better than anyone else. Neeko is still one of the best options to play in the mid lane though, with that surprising playstyle of jumping out of her passive and one-shotting entire enemy teams. She brings great pick potential on isolated targets, but she also brings insane AoE damage and engage. And to top it all off, that unpredictable playstyle of camouflaging minion waves or as control wards can be so much fun to play with and really keep enemies on their toes. Neeko's been a great pick since her rework, and if no nerfs come her way anytime soon, she still always will be a top choice. Ladies and gentlemen, Qiyana has been buffed, so if you're a Qiyana one-trick waiting in the shadows, it might be your time to shine again. Now it's only a small buff, so don't be too excited, but it might just be enough to make you consider picking her back up again. Qiyana is one of the most difficult champions in the game to play perfectly. She's got tons of different combos and abilities that you can use to string together and outplay your enemies and one-shot them beyond repair. But at the end of the day, if you do get behind on this champion, she's just not going to be impactful whatsoever. Yes, she has a big AoE CC ultimate, but she really relies on her damage to do her thing. Either way, if you do enjoy Qiyana though, now is a great time to give her another go. Down to the bot lane next, and in the S tier we have Ashe, Ezreal, Jinx and Vayne. Nothing really too crazy happening here for the holidays though, as we've just got some small buffs to Lucian and Zeri. Caitlyn has been performing much better recently, and that's why she's climbed up to the A tier. Now you can still build her traditional crit with Infinity Edge alongside Fleet Footwork, or you can go for the First Strike lethality build instead. And this just comes down to your playstyle, the matchup, the game and whatever you prefer. But in my experience, that lethality build is just so much more fun. Trap placements and headshots and ultimates, it's just so satisfying seeing enemies' health pools disintegrate. Either way though, Caitlyn is not the best pick in the game by any means, but she's definitely better than she has been in the past. So if you do enjoy her, it's a great time to main her again because of all those long range artillery mages that you'll simply be too far away from for them to kill you. Now we all know how strong Ezreal and Vayne are, but Jhin is actually not too far away from them either. He's definitely a lot more situational and not quite as blind pickable, but in the right lanes with the right supports like a Zyra or a Xerath, he can feel simply unplayable. He can bully lanes super easily with the Q bouncing grenade damage, the 4th shot burst and of course the pick potential in his W. But he doesn't really have too many issues going into the later stages of the game either. He gets tons of movement speed from Storm Rays and his passive, and he can weave in and out of fights and burst people down easily. So if the S tier AD carries a banned or you just bored of playing them, start playing Jhin again. If for some reason you just don't want to play AD carry whatsoever though, you can always just pick Karthus, who still has a ridiculously impressive win rate in the bot lane. Karthus has tons of damage in the lane phase with those isolated Qs, and if you partner him up with a Pike or an aggressive support, you can get super fed. But that's not the best part though, because Karthus scales like an absolute machine. In the late game, you will deal ridiculous amounts of damage with your ultimate, with your Qs, and even your E and your passive. So even if you die straight away in a team fight, as long as you're amongst the midst of an enemy team, you will deal crazy amounts of damage. Finally, let's have a look at support, and in the S tier we have Blitzcrank, Janna, Maokai, Rakan, Senna, Soraka and Xerath. A few buffs to some underperforming supports this patch, but not really any nerfs to any of the S tier ones. Braum is getting a buff to his mana regen and his ultimate CC, and we've actually moved him up to the A tier this week because he's already a pretty underrated support. He's been performing much better in recent weeks. He's fantastic with some of the meta AD carries like Ezreal and Vayne, who can proc his passive easily and really abuse that stun. He's also a great pick into those projectile based mages like Syndra, where you can block loads of their damage. So if you are looking for a new support to play this patch and you haven't played Braum recently, this could be the perfect time to do it. Leona has also got some buffs this patch to her W's resistances and her ultimate's damage. Now Leona really hasn't been in the best spot for a while, because if you want to pick Leona, you might as well just pick Rel. But that's not to say she isn't a great option, especially now with these buffs too. The ranged engage and the chain CC is one of Leona's main attractions. And if this is what you need in your team comp where you've got lots of follow-up damage and wombo combo teamfight abilities, then she still is a great pick. Leona's also been one of those champs that's fantastic in duo queue. Pick an aggressive AD carry, pick Leona, all in at level 2, level 3, level 4 and level 6, and before you know it you are stomping and snowballing ridiculously quickly. A support that is entirely different to Leona is Sona, and she's been maintaining her place in the A tier for a very long time now. She's no way near as popular as the likes of Soraka and other strong S tier supports. But if you look at Sona's win rate across the majority of ranks, it's actually very impressive. Sona is very easy and straightforward to play and to learn. She has poke, she has heal, she has slow, she has movement speed, and she has an AoE ultimate. But it's really that scaling utility and sustain that makes her such a great pick into any team comp. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13.24 tier list video. We wish you all the best of luck with the end of the season grind, and don't forget to download Mobalytics to let us help you rank up with our stats, our builds, guides and much more. Thanks everyone for watching the video, and we'll catch you all next time. Take care.